Chapter 10. Alone in a New World. That was dangerous. If I hadn't noticed what was going on, I would have been toast. Sena breathed a deep sigh in ZNV's cockpit. ZNV, are you okay? Yes, but I'm afraid I'm mostly no longer usable. I'm having trouble regenerating. I'm sorry. The lower body of ZNV was almost blown away. The left arm was also damaged intensely. All of those weapons were unusable, but the right arm and some weapons were left. It's okay. I'm sorry about getting you involved in that. ZNV was born to fight. So don't worry. Let's just think about the future for now. ZNV had always been treated as a weapon. It was no wonder it thought of itself in such a manner. Sena could say nothing more. Sena knew that he had also gotten hit with a marker bullet when he hit Himik and knew it wouldn't be following them easily. For a first-generation ship, ZNV was relatively safe in doing a hyperspace jump with the paint, but he remembered how the bullets had taken down the Kamadake 1 and shuddered. He soon decided to jump out of hyperspace and immediately encountered a pirate fleet. I'm sorry, but I have no other choice. ZNV fire a gravity bullet. ZNV fired a bullet that destroyed the entire fleet, and then Sena had ZNV eject its core from the exterior shell and self-destruct to get rid of the paint. He now only had the essential core of the cockpit left. He could now easily move and shield himself, but fighting was out of the question. Even with his first-generation tree, he couldn't risk it. We need to find somewhere to land. Sena thought for a bit and recalled something Sauron had told him. His sister was stationed on a small frontier planet near where Sena was. He decided to go find her to get help. Sena thought for a bit. I can use the Philosopher's Stone to contact Kariko or Hakurin, but Kariko is stuck on Recepshi and there's no guarantee they aren't all being watched. I could end up accidentally giving up my location. I could try Washu, but she hasn't responded to any of my messages yet. In any case, I have no choice but to hide until things cool down. I just need to find Sauron's sister and lay low. Philosopher's Stone, calculate the route there. Calculation completed. We should be there after this next jump. All right, go ahead and do it. ZNV, I'm going to take it easy for a bit. Sena warped his seat into a cozier position and took a nap. Arriving at the target location. Execute awakening processing. Since the stone was installed in Sena himself, it was possible to control his body. Of course, it couldn't override Sena's will, but it could make him move to protect himself when he was unconscious. Oh, have we arrived? Sena was completely awake within a moment. We have arrived at target planet Barium. The stone pulled all the information it could on the planet and dumped it into Sena's brain instantly. It's a frontier planet. It functions as both a spaceport and an army outpost. It's going to be tricky getting down there. We're going to have to sneak down to the surface. I'm not sensing any scientific reactions. Is it uncolonized? There were 4 large continents that stood out on the image of the planet. One of them had little green and a large desert that stood out. The other continents and islands were a surprisingly deep green. Although the polar cap was covered with ice, its area was quite small. No, I can confirm large settlements and civilized areas, but lots of magic trees. It must be a magic-based civilization. So we just have to get through basic air defenses. Let's enter using inertial navigation. At worst, if they see us, they will think we are space debris or a comet. All right, set a good landing point and let's do it. They landed by a lake in an uninhabited area. Sena waited until morning, confirmed the air was safe to breathe, and got out. ZNV, will you be okay staying here? Yes, but please come back to pick me up soon. Sorry to have to leave you like this. ZNV's core was big and would have stood out quite a lot if he had it follow behind him. He took a survival kit and left. ZNV hid itself under the lake. I wonder why ZNV wasn't able to get any good map readings of this area. Maybe it's because this is a magic planet. He remembered what he heard about how science and magic were pretty incompatible. Sena tried to figure out how he was going to survive through the jungle. He only had a knife and a laser gun. Do you have any info on the magic plant? It's safe to eat. Then this shouldn't be too hard. He test-fired his laser to make sure it still worked. All right, it looks like it's still functioning and has a range of about 10 meters. I still have to be careful not to cause a fire. There is a village about 200 kilometers from here. You should make it in 3 days with your bio-enhanced body. Sena looked around the lake and found a green sheet of plants floating in the water. He pulled it out and threw it on himself as camouflage. Will I be able to get back here if our sensors aren't working right? Yes. I have enough data for us to get back here easily. He headed off into the forest. What? About 3 hours later, Sena started feeling strange, like he was catching a cold. Philosopher's Stone. What's going on? Not detecting any poisoning or bacterial infection, detecting a rise in temperature. Cause is not identifiable. That didn't help Sena's anxiety any. Your pulse is increasing and your breathing is disturbed. I suggest you rest. Sena heard something rustle in the grass nearby. He saw a small humanoid come out of the trees about 50 meters ahead. A child? No. A goblin. Its eyes were big and its ears were sharp, and it looked ghastly, and it had a few friends who looked slightly different but similar to it. They had bone and tree-based weapons with them, so it was clear they were intelligent. But one also wore what was clearly a human skull as a helmet. He wasn't surprised goblins existed, but since he hadn't seen any in his experimental unit, he decided to be wary of them. But because they seemed intelligent, he wanted to avoid having to attack them. It's possible they have human rights and property rights here, or maybe they're protected creatures. I don't want to get in any trouble if I can avoid it. Have you figured out what is causing this cold yet? Cause unknown. Poison or virus not detected. Body function is also normal. Most likely possibility is magic. I recommend you get to safe place to rest immediately. Although his fever had increased, his head was still clear, thanks to his bioenhancement. He waited for the goblins to spread out and tried to sneak past them, but he had bad luck and was spotted. He ran off at full speed and they followed him. Be careful, they may be leading us into a trap. As expected, he was ambushed by a group of goblins in front of him. But he scooped them up and threw them behind him and kept on running. Gagujai. Am I running right into their territory? They don't stop coming. The goblin's high-pitched screams were coming from here and there as he ran, until suddenly a huge creature jumped out at him. It was over 2 meters tall and had a body like a gorilla, but the face of a wild boar with 2 thick fangs and thick arms. It lunged at him, but he used something Kagaya had taught him and used the thing's momentum against it and flipped it over him and into the goblins behind him, knocking them down like pins. Then he ran off. He could hear it roaring behind him, but it didn't seem to be following him. After that he ran into goblins 3 other times and once into a strange dog-headed monster. But he kept running away. Goblins, orcs, kobolds? He had to find a place to escape to quickly where he wouldn't be found. The goblins seemed to have a good sense of smell. His attempts to hide hadn't worked. He decided to climb a nearby tall tree after rubbing himself with things in the forest to blend in with their scent. He assembled a hammock and got in it. It was sealed like a body bag and made out of a special material so he wouldn't have to worry about falls or attacks or pests. Have you identified what is causing this fever yet? Poison and viruses were not detected. An abnormality in your body is highly likely due to high heat. The energy accumulated in your body is being consumed faster than normal. You should double your usual caloric intake. In that case, I'd better collect food in the jungle after this. His emergency kit had 10 days worth of food, but if he doubled it, it would only last 5. Luckily, there was plenty of food in the forest. I'm just glad this isn't a desert. We should arrive at the nearest city in 2 days. Oh, good. Sena ate double servings and went to bed. It sounded like noise and like raindrops. It seemed like he had tinnitus since the fever began. He could hear it as he lay in his hammock. I'm burning up. And it feels like I swallowed a hot mochi and it's stuck in my throat. It was annoying him. Of course, he still heard the noise too. Inducing sleep to preserve strength. With the power of the stone, Sena started to breathe slowly. Early in the morning of the next day, Sena woke up because of the stone. The tinnitus was still there. The situation remains the same. 3 times during sleep, goblins approached, but they left. There were no other abnormalities. Okay, I will leave after I eat. About 6 hours after departing. I wonder why there are so many goblins here. He had encountered hundreds so far. Of course, there was also lots of food in the forest and small animals, but the number seemed way too high. Maybe they have a settlement nearby? I can't tell. Is there any change in my physical condition? No poison or virus, no damage to body from the heat. 5% decline in functioning due to fatigue. Eating is recommended. He had eaten plenty over the last few hours, but decided to stop and eat some more. He wasn't worried about being snuck up on because thanks to his bioenhancement giving him echolocation skills, he was able to even walk without looking. He decided to sit and take in his surroundings. He managed to sense a herd of goblins being hunted by a large animal. They were running his way. He didn't run, however, and soon the animal came out and the goblins ran past him and hid. He took out his spear and stood and faced the animal. It had a body striped like a tiger and a face like a monkey. It roared at him to intimidate him, but he pulled out the laser and shot it in both eyes. He only hit one though. The chimera turned his face away in pain and Sena used that moment to run away. When the chimera turned around, all it found were the goblins there. However, Sena hadn't escaped, and he heard it happen as he had actually gone and hid behind a tree hoping it would get the goblins and leave. But the chimera sensed him and chased after him. He was having trouble shaking it off of his trail, so he decided to shoot its front tendons and make it unable to chase after him, but it did nothing. It still ran at him very quickly. It swiped at him and knocked him over. In a last-ditch effort, he took out the battery from his laser gun and threw it at the chimera. It exploded when it hit the creature and the chimera went limp for a bit as Sena struggled to get up. But soon it also got up and followed him. "Do you want some help?" A small dwarf came out of the brush and asked, "Please." He went and hid behind a tree. "Activate the traps." The dwarf yelled, holes in the ground opened and the chimera fell in. 6 people came out and surrounded the hole. They speared with what seemed to be enchanted spears as it tried to crawl out of the hole. That was a quick takedown. It was already half dead. Who did that? That man hiding in the shadows, he's alone. Just one person? The chimera tried to get out and they speared it one last time and it died. Wow, and this is a pretty large chimera. They were wearing leather and metal armor and they had swords, bows, sticks, and spears. There were dwarfs, elves, and a beast man. Sena felt like he was in a fantasy movie. It's okay to come out, it's dead. But Sena had passed out. This thing is really beat up. Its eyes are damaged and so are its tendons and its brain. It looks like some goblins were fighting it off too. Is he the only one? Just him. There's no sign of anyone else. Hey, look at his clothes and equipment. There's absolutely no mistaking it. Well, he has no guild tag and no ID, so it's very probable. Is that so? A female elf whispered something to a male elf. If that's so, we should hand him over to the authorities. No, I don't think we should. A dwarf came to check on Sena's medical status. He seems to have caught a magic cold. A magic cold? Those from space never get those. Well, sometimes if they're under 5, but he's an adult. And yet he has one. A man who can take down a chimera this size by himself can be useful. I think I'll keep him as a pet. Let me take care of him. Don't tell anyone about this. Baragaru said. Okay, but only if we get increased shares. Fine, but leave him at least 30%. Well, even with a 30% loss, this thing is in good condition. I've got no complaints. They all nodded gratefully except for Kakucha.